Chaos as a faction is quite diverse. It represents a wide variety of visual, thematic, and storytelling potential for the Warhammer 40,000 universe. But very few factions underneath the umbrella of Chaos truly capture the meaning of the word, like that of the Emperor's Children. The Emperor's Children are one of the factions that are extremely prominent, yet not heard from incredibly often. Despite being one of the original 9 Traitor Legions, the Black Legion, World Eaters, and Death Guard are easily the most prominent, with everyone else securing some sort of slot down the ladder in regards to both importance to the setting and popularity. This, however, should not diminish their presence or effectiveness, as the Emperor's Children are far from just a band of traitors. The Emperor's Children, more than anything else, were the first legion alongside the Word Bearers to willingly plunge themselves into chaos, even after learning of the downsides that come along with it. Despite the manipulation of their Primarch Fulgrim, many in the legion were primed from the beginning to devolve into the decadent band of raiders and savages that would bring ruin to many a world within the Milky Way galaxy. There are many reasons for this, first among them being the culture of the legion itself and the mindset of its Primarch. The Emperor's Children pride themselves on perfection. It is their main driving force, even during their tenure as part of the Emperor's Legions. Fulgrim himself came from humble beginnings on Chemos, working in factories and learning the value of a hard day's work, along with trying to be the best you can be every single day. He would bring the world up from its laboring ways into a more luxurious world, and prided himself in pursuing all things in the best way possible. This striving for personal perfection came to a head after meeting the Emperor, and from that point on, he strived to be as close as possible to the Emperor, who he truly believed to be perfect. This mindset of achieving perfection, which is not a resting state in his mind, but a state of constant, well-thought-out effort in the direction of self-improvement, was one the Legion at large adopted. Contrary to many would think, Fulgrim was not more arrogant than the other Primarchs. In fact, he was a lot more reasonable than many of the others, as they all had a significant amount of arrogance. The key was that Fulgrim, after a time, began to lose sight of the fact that perfection was not a state of growth, but a constant state instead, something he would grow to struggle with for a decent part of the Great Crusade. Despite these humble beginnings of himself and his legion, those within it would begin to adopt a more arrogant, spiteful, and overall opportunistic attitude. Many of the legion's leadership would adopt these values. Despite being the heroes they believed themselves to be, the overall legion would begin to slip, with such ideals being thrust upon them and unable to live up to them. This would result in them forcing themselves into a mindset of almost self-entitled arrogance, one that Fulgrim himself would begin to suffer from, and would be considerably worsened, given his main leadership council was comprised of individuals such as Eidolon, or even Fabius Bile to a lesser extent. This, however, is not always the case, as many within the Legion, like Saul Tarvitz, were paragons of virtue, and represented what the Legion was before this culture of supposed perfection began to gaslight everyone into believing that if they were anything less than perfect, they were worthless both in the eyes of their Primarch and the Emperor. For a time, the Legion would be one of the best during the Great Crusade, being very much so quality over quantity, and even earning the honor of being able to wear the Emperor's Palatine Aquila on their armor and vehicles, something no other Legion could boast. But this reward is a double-edged sword, as it only led to more of this arrogant attitude being fostered later on. But there is another thing that would contribute to this arrogance becoming more prevalent within the Legion. The issues with their gene seed early on in the Crusade would result in the Legion being a fraction of what it would become when Fulgrim was reunited with it. Instead of thousands of warriors standing before him, a mere 200 Marines were left in the Emperor's Children. The honor of bearing the Aquila, alongside the shame of gene seed flaws, would fan the flames of Fulgrim's insecurities, and while this would not happen for a while, over time that insecurity would grow as they would achieve more and more, leading to that culture of arrogance previously discussed to become more and more prominent. And even towards the end of the Great Crusade, Fulgrim's best friend Ferrus Manus would begin to become concerned about Fulgrim's arrogance, even before he would touch the Layer Blade. So with all of this in mind, the culture of arrogance within the Legion becoming more prevalent, combined with the individuals who would push it in such a self-congratulatory pious direction, these flaws would be exploited by the man who would lead them, after he was corrupted by the pleasure god Slaanesh, as during their campaign of compliance against the Laren, he would take the Layer Blade from a Laren temple as a trophy, without realizing that it possessed a Slaaneshi demon, and this demon would begin to manipulate Fulgrim, eat away at his mental faculties, and make him perfectly primed for chaos corruption. This singular event would doom the entirety of the Legion. Even worse is that some within the Legion, and those attached to it, the scholars, musicians, painters, and others would begin to feel the effects of Slaanesh, as their investigation of the Laren Temple was intoxicating to them, and they would strive to maintain that blissful feeling throughout increasingly decadent things, remembrancers killing people and taking their organs and bodily fluids as paint for their art, Marines augmenting themselves with combat drugs, as Fabius Bile would begin to tinker with the gene seed of the Marines within the Legion in an effort to cure their gene seed flaws as well as improve them. But the moment that the Emperor's children fell would not be during Istvan III or Istvan V, but at the performance of Bekwa Kinska's Maraviglia. Bekwa Kinska was one of the individuals who was attached to the expedition of the Emperor's Children. She was a heavily gifted musician, easily the best one that ever lived in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and was basically just doing this for kicks. And during her investigation of the Laren Temple, she would become so captivated with the music that played and the energy she felt that she would hold a performance for the Legion celebrating their victory at Istvan III in her best attempt to imitate the music that she heard in the temple. During this performance, the emotions felt by every Marine, every person there, everyone from an usher to a stewardess, would begin to feel the effects of the performance. Bekwa would thrash, wave, and twist in an inhuman manner as the music would envelop her and the entire audience, until a demonette appeared out of her lead singer, beheading Bekwa Kinska and disrupting the performance. The frantic audience would mount the stage, attempting to use the special instruments created for the performance, but to no avail, as they would create such sonic blasts that would liquefy and annihilate anything it hit. Blood, decadence, and every possible excess and emotion was felt in that room, as the entire hall would begin to just evolve into a chaotic blend of death, pleasure, and pain. This was the moment when the true downfall of the Legion that had the Emperor's highest grace would begin. The drop site massacre would occur. The Marines who were inspired by the musical chaos of the performance would begin to alter themselves, becoming cacophony, and the first true Noise Marines, and Fulgrim ascending to demonhood not long afterwards. And as the Heresy War would continue on, them annihilating and partaking in every decadent pleasure available to them, they would continue to fall more and more into the darkness they swore to fight against. Even at the Siege of Terra, the once stalwart noble warriors were more concerned with capturing civilians that turned into stimulants than attack the walls of the Imperial Palace. But after the siege would fail, the Legion would exist for a time. During the scouring, they would flee to the Eye of Terror and proceed to engage in the Legion Wars, easily being the most significant threat to every other Legion in the Eye at that time. However, on that one faithful day, the day that Abaddon the Despoiler and his nascent Black Legion destroyed their world of harmony and their new home of the Canonical City, the Legion would truly fracture, and any semblance of genuine cohesion or significant higher thought would be lost forever. And with Fulgrim now on his own, engaging in pleasures and uncaring towards larger issues, his sons continued to butcher and maim in such a sadistic manner that the Dark Eldar are even wary of their efforts, not to mention their status as the chosen champions of the Prince Who Thirsts. This status is one well earned, as while there are legions who may be more cruel than the Emperor's Children, there are none more sadistic than them. The average warband of the Legion will take their battle barge, or whatever warship they possess, and hunt. They will find worlds to plunder, taking every single man, woman, and child and treat them to unspeakable horrors that would make the strongest of individuals weep for mercy. These tears, this pain, becomes pleasure to the Marines and cultists within their ranks, as they slowly torture and defile everything they come across. Not to mention the Noise Marines, the truly decadent and most devoted of Slaanesh's followers, who follow the Song of Slaanesh, played by using their instrumental weapons, blasting apart buildings and people with them, their bodies mutilated and deformed, as any orifice, any eye, ear, or mouth is replaced with a Vox grill, their skin and brains fried from constant use of stimulants and chemicals to serve as combat enhancements, and to give such a euphoric feeling that anyone looking at a legionary of the Third, they would not see anything more than a malicious, sadistic, pleasure-crazed animal under the delusion that their own patron god is anything more than a walking defilement of the reality it claims to own. These Marines, these false Astartes, are little more than animalistic freaks, lost without any real direction or goal. The only hope for any legionaries left to actually have any sense is to join the Black Legion, but to do this would be seen as a massive betrayal by the rest of the Legion, as the events of Abaddon's destruction of harmony were what led to the Emperor's Children being even more decadent and vile than they already were. Without Fulgrim to direct them, his hedonism and insanity aside, the Emperor's Children are truly just a broken band of savages and murderers who would gladly hurt anyone and anything in order to derive pleasure from the suffering of the living, either for their own ends or out of boredom. because truly, the only person that could actually redirect the Legion is Fulgrim, as anyone actually trying to lead is little more than just the same type of animalistic freak that already populates the Legion. Eidolon is all but missing. Lucius is the champion of Slaanesh and is more concerned with dueling, and Fabius Bile is genuinely the only member of the Legion left who can actually be said to follow the tenets of the old Legion, even going as far as to say that the Chaos Gods aren't even gods, and they're not even real. So unless Fulgrim were to return, the Legion will continue to eat itself alive forever, until there is nothing left to plunder, maim, capture, or defile. If you want to know more about the Emperor's Children, please consider reading the books Fulgrim, the Fulgrim Primarch novel, the latest Renegades novel, Lords of Excess, and Liber Chaotica Slaanesh for more information, alongside Index Chaotica Noise Marines, which is actually really, really, really good. And if you want to know more about specific characters, take a look at the Fabius Bile trilogy, as well as the couple of books Lucius the Eternal has. As while I've read the Lucius the Eternal books, I haven't read the Fabius Bile trilogy yet, but I have heard it's quite good. Thank you all very much for watching. If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member, and thank you very much to the channel members. Your support means so much to me. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a great night.